Well, it was about 25 years after I sort of started shooting, or at least 20 years, when I realized that I'd amassed all this material, over 200 hours of footage, and it got to a point where I just really felt I had to finish it. My father had died some years ago. I had some distance, and I knew Damon. And Damon was really the key because as my producing partner, I knew that he would be able to put all these elements together into something that I could then work on. It was a really intimidating without that organizing force.
How did you step in and become an organizing force? Was it also kind of sort of being able to pick apart and find some of the story threads that may be harder to find if you're so personally close to the person?
Yeah, I mean, well, first was just actually logistics. I mean, the material was sort of scattered to the winds and on 8 different formats. So first it was actually finding the footage, and then the whole process of digitizing and transcribing all that, and then, you know, teaming up with HBO and getting all of those things moving. And then it was, once we were in it, it was, you know, notes, you know, looking at cuts, giving feedback, and having an outside perspective. But Rebecca worked really hard with the editor on sort of weaving it together, and then you take a step back, and then you're there for support when needed. But yeah, it was over the course of 8 years. So
you've been working on this for 8 years, and in the middle of that, you made another movie as well.
Yeah, Maggie's Plan. Yeah, we did do that. So it wasn't that I was cutting for 8 years, but it took years to just assemble the footage and digitize it and transcribe it and everything. And then we cut for 18 months. So it was a pretty long process getting this film together. Finding a structure for it was really hard, you know, and then deciding on the structure and then weaving it in and out, because it's not a typical documentary. It's sort of almost a personal essay. Sometimes we're between a personal essay and a documentary.
Right, we're often hearing from him at several different points in his life. There is a sort of thread of like sort of the first big play up until sort of the end of his life, but at the same time we are jumping back and forth a lot of the time and hearing sort of his thoughts about his life while he's older or younger and going back and forth.
A friend of mine recently described it as a cubist approach, like in terms of painting, like looking at something from different angles at the same time. And that's sort of how it was, like trying to get deep inside his head using letters and journal entries, but at the same time, and very personal footage. But then also there's the historical perspective, because you can't really tell his story without telling the story of his century a little. And so those eras are all definitely take a big chunk of the film as well.